Now, everyone likes investigating the minuscule details of the plot and tearing apart all the new gameplay footage of Tears of the Kingdom, but what I really want to know is whether or not it's going to be any good in the first place. Now, it's worded in a very simple question, and the answer could be simple too, but simplicity ignores many discrepancies that need to be discussed. So join me as we get to the bottom of whether or not this game will actually be any good. One main area the game could fall is with the aspect of effort and time put out for the project. We could argue all day whether or not the gameplay is interesting enough or the map is new enough, but something inarguable that I've previously discussed is that this game has been in development just as long, if not longer, than Breath of the Wild, while still using the base components of it. This shows the unbelievable amount of work put into the game. But on the other side, it could be believed that the development was unfocused and bugged with flaws, and this quickly becomes incredibly difficult to disprove as we've hardly been shown anything in the first place, without a glimpse of the story or hands-on demo in sight. We've seen the gameplay footage at this point, which is honestly more than I ever wanted, video in the description, but without the rest, we can't know for sure how dedicated the effort for this game was, and who's to even say they had as much time as we thought, which brings me to... 2020 was a fun year, wasn't it? We got Super Mario 3D All-Stars, kind of a disappointment. We also got Age of Calamity, great game, play it if you haven't already, and what else? Oh yeah, everyone was locked inside their houses for 7 months. That certainly put a damper in a lot of people's plans. With that, we can also assume that Nintendo had a bit of a damp and had to drastically slow down development for many projects. But really, who's to say that even hurt any of their games in the first place? If we look at what they released in the past year, we can see that they've made iconic games like 3D Kirby, Splatoon 3, and a Pokemon game that doesn't actually suck. And now, with another year to continue making great stuff, there's no reason Tears of the Kingdom should suffer any more from that pesky little bat suit. So then, if the development times won't be keeping the game back, what else might? Well, I think it's the fan expectations that we all need to be scared of this time. With ample time to create the game, there's no reason to be scared of its quality. The real factor in determining whether or not this game will be good is unfortunately what it usually comes down to: opinion. Let's start out by highlighting the main 3 issues when determining how people will receive the game. 1. The plot. 2. The world. And finally 3. Return to form. Starting off with number 1, will the plot suffice to people's needs? Now, back when Breath of the Wild released, people were very clearly disappointed with the simple plot, but because the game itself was the best open world game to that point, and still continues to be incredible today, the plot never needed to make Dickens jealous. But now that we've had Breath of the Wild for years and Tears of the Kingdom's keeping the same basic recipe of Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom's gonna need to make a case for it to stand apart from Breath of the Wild. And unfortunately for Nintendo, I don't think the near endless possibilities of Fuse will be enough. Without a proper narrative to rival Skyward Sword or Majora's Mask, I don't think Tears of the Kingdom will be nearly as good or successful as Breath of the Wild. But even more unfortunate for Nintendo, there's still 2 more factors Nintendo needs to excel at to truly make everyone happy. And for part 2, we need to talk about the world of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild has the best open world I know, and that's incredibly large part due to the feeling we had of discovery at every moment of exploration. No matter what you were doing, there was always something to discover around the corner. Now that Tears of the Kingdom is using the same map as Breath of the Wild, it's likely that the same feeling of playing Breath of the Wild won't return. Now, I do believe the use of Breath of the Wild's original map can actually make exploration more fun, as we can now see how areas have altered in the time between the games, but even someone like me still won't be appeased if that's all we get. So for Tears of the Kingdom to be just as good as Breath of the Wild, the skies and possibly caves need to be equally, if not more interesting than Hyrule was. If most of the game is still spent on Hyrule, then there would be no hope for saving Tears of the Kingdom, unless of course they managed to nail part 3. Part 3, again, being the return to form. For this, I mean, for Tears of the Kingdom to match up or even supersede Breath of the Wild, it needs to go back to what made everyone fall in love with 3D Zelda in the first place: the dungeons. The amazing, wonderful dungeons. After the divine beasts of Breath of the Wild, which were, to be blunt, awful, we need dungeons that are truly a return back to form in the series. We need specified themed dungeons that are at least twice as long as the divine beasts, with fun, unique bosses at the end of each of them. For all things Tears of the Kingdom needs to be better than a glorified DLC in my opinion, It's this. I may not be as anal as some people on this, but I want this game to be equally remembered for its fabulous dungeons as it will be remembered for its world or story. But that's just how I feel. I really want to know how everyone else wants to see this game, and what they need to actually consider the game any good. So please, make sure to yell at me in full caps why I'm wrong and why you have a better opinion. And while you're at it, you might as well subscribe because I'm not going away and I'll be making more Zelda content in the coming months. Until then, stay cool!